This episode of the Golden Triangle Signal is brought to you by HB Neild and Sons, contractors and construction managers, commercial, institutional, industrial. HB Neild and Sons Construction was formed in 1932 in Beaumont, Texas. The founder, HB Neild, was an immigrant from Liverpool who came to America with drive, tenacity, and vision. What started as a family business became an enduring legacy of excellence in large-scale commercial and industrial construction. HB Neild and Sons Incorporated grew in size and expanded in service areas over the decades. The business itself has grown into a multi-generational company with each of the 4 generations participating since the founding, all contributing together to HB Neild's vision of quality work and honest business dealings. The company is a product of hard work, tireless effort, and time-honored commitment by generations of employees and their families who share the Neild family's belief that every project must be of the highest quality and view every building constructed as a small portion of their heritage. Today, HB Neild is active throughout multiple segments of the construction industry all along the Gulf Coast, specializing in industrial construction and large-scale commercial and institutional construction projects. Industry-leading petrochemical clients turn to HB Neild for their extensive experience in heavy-duty, highly skilled construction within plants and refineries for blast-resistant structures, laboratories, control buildings, and administration buildings, while the commercial clients trust their experience and skill for their municipal buildings, their schools, churches, retail buildings, and other commercial structures. They build every project with the same values and principles that support the number one original promise from the founder of quality. So once again, we want to thank HB Neild and Sons Incorporated for sponsoring this podcast, the Golden Triangle Signal, and for assisting us and helping us achieve our dreams as we do whatever we can to do our part to help you also achieve your dreams. So we're going live right now, and June the 23rd, man. So I don't know when hopefully we're going to put this podcast episode up this weekend.
This weekend, yeah, we should get this up this weekend.
I hope so, man. I'm tired. It needs to get launched. And so once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, audience whole, we're back on track. Golden Triangle Signal. James and Stephen Maxwell.
What's up, my brother?
Kicking it around, talking industry, talking life, talking work, talking construction, talking professionalism. So we decided we were going to talk about professionalism tonight. Professionalism in the workplace, professionalism as it pertains to obviously the construction industry related.
It's an important topic. It's an important thing to talk about.
Take it away, son.
I mean, there's a lot that's lacking. First impressions really do matter. You know, and people make judgments of you when they see you, the way you act,
Even
the
to
way
me.
you talk, the way you walk, whether they mean to or not. They're going to see you, they're going to see the way you talk, the way you present yourself, and people are going to make judgments about you on a subconscious level. So you got to figure out the way to put your best foot forward. What do you think about that?
What if you don't have feet?
Oh, come on now.
Put your best wheel forward.
That's right.
Well, no, I mean, so we're joking around. We've been joking for the last few minutes, but it is serious. It is a serious topic, and something that especially people entering the industry, especially young people. You might not be young. Maybe this needs to be a tune-up for some people. That how you're seen, how you're listened to, has a big impact on what you do. Has a big impact on how people perceive you. That can have an impact on how what you do, how far you go, what your career looks like. It's a big problem with young people, especially today. If we're talking June of 2020, it's especially a big problem with young people. But and professionalism isn't just how you look, but it's how you act, how you interact with people on the job site, how you take correction from your superiors on the job site, how you lead younger people or subordinate people, how you lead people on the job site, how you take leadership, how you give leadership. That's all encompassing of professionalism.
How you pay attention in the safety meetings, what time
Yeah.
do you show up for work. I mean, it starts before you, and you got to leave. You got to get up and get going and take your job serious. So get up and leave the house and get to the job site early. You know, get there 15 minutes before you're supposed to be there. If you're going to a job site at a refinery or some large site where you got a truck or a van or some kind of shuttle bus is going to meet you in the parking lot, and it's going to be leaving at 6 o'clock every morning or 5:30 or whatever, always be there 15, 20 minutes early.
So this is kind of a trend that we've been having in a lot of conversations, and several conversations on this podcast have touched on this subject of showing up on time, showing up ahead of time, showing up every day. Consistency is key, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be early, but be early every day. You know, if you're early one day of the week and then you're late 4 days of the week, guess what? That one early day don't really count for much. Okay? People look at consistency.
That's right.
And that's something I've struggled with. I struggled with over the years.
Struggled.
You know, I mean,
I've
never. It's like, we're sitting here and we're like, dude, you got to be consistent. But it's like, guess what? I wasn't consistent all of the time. You know, I mean, I went through years where I wasn't consistent, and that's why we're harping on this so much. Is because we learned our lesson. You know, we learned our lesson. We moved past it. We're better for it.
Then maybe we've changed our sleep schedule. Maybe we've changed our diet.
Oh, exactly.
Maybe we're taking vitamins now, or a combination that actually helps us.
I tell people all the time, young guys get involved in our crew all the time, and I say, look, man, you got to find what works for you. Like, what works for you might not work for me. But say the 19-year-old kid entering the workforce, like, hey, bud, and I've had this conversation several times, like, hey, man, maybe you need to go home and go to sleep at 9 o'clock in the evening in order to wake up and be at work ready to go at 5:30 in the morning. You know, maybe some people actually do better with less sleep. You know, so maybe you just stay up a little bit later. You know, I operate pretty good on like 4.5, 5 hours of sleep. I operate really well there, but some people need a little bit more sleep. Some people need less sleep, and
it also depends on how old you are.
It depends on how old you are. What what your home life is like. I mean, do you have a toddler at home that's keeping you up all night, or do you have no kids? All your kids are grown out of the house. Like, all those things change. So it's a very dynamic situation. I always tell people to go home and assess your particular situation, right? And what works for you is not going to work for me. But maybe you need 2 more hours of sleep than I do, or maybe you can get by on 2 less hours of sleep than I can. And whatever that is, experiment and find what works for you. But the bottom line is, for most kids that are 19, 20 years old, the bottom line is like, but dude, you're probably not sleeping enough. Like, go home, turn the video game off, turn your cell phone off, say goodbye to your friends, you know, leave the bar, go home and get some damn sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Show up to work on time because you're rested. And I mean, you know, you start to see that in the industry, a lot of the more experienced guys, which is to say a lot of the old guys, go home and go to sleep like 9 o'clock in the evening, because they got to get up at 3:30 in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work on time. You know, because we all go to work. I mean, we go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. You know, I mean, we're talking about an industry where you have to be on site, ready to go, like you said, maybe catching a shuttle or catching a crew truck into the facility, and you got to be at work early in the morning. You know, we're not talking about guys going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're talking about guys going to work at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, or maybe they're working a shift and they're going to work at midnight. It's like, hey, bro, you got to go home and go to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, every time I fly out of home, I'm going offshore for these Oxy projects. Going offshore to do these surveys. The check-in, and this is just normal check-in for any heliport, even back in the day when you and I were going out and doing surveys together. The check-in is 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You're not gonna lift off in a helicopter before the daybreak and you got good sunshine outside. But you're gonna have to be there, check in, take a drug test if you have to, make sure everything's processed, make sure they got all your paperwork, and then you're gonna sit there and you're gonna wait. Maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. But regardless, check-in time is 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So you got to be there with bells on,
Ready to go.
drinking your coffee, ready to rock and roll. So when they call your name, you're able to go. If you're going out to a job site at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to start work, you also got to be on your P's and Q's. You got to be awake, you got to be focused, you got to be ready to fill out your JSAs, get on the job site, be safe, be aware of your surroundings.
Here's a point. All right, so here's a point I'm gonna harp on, and this is something I keep coming back around to because everybody that you talk to, every Joe Blow on YouTube that's talking about success, talking about business success, talking about career success, everybody's 90% is just showing up. 90% of success is just showing up. And it's like, what does that mean, man? Like, what does showing up mean? And showing up means, like you just said, showing up on time for whatever the particular project calls for. Okay? So, young people out there listening who are like, well, I'm just supposed to show up. No, you're not. Show up means you arrive on time, ready to work. Mentally, physical,
the whole bit.
So in the industrial environment, we have a saying, "fit to work."
Right.
So fit to work means I'm rested, I'm hydrated, I'm nourished, I have my tools and my equipment, and I'm ready to go. Mentally,
Yep.
I'm mentally clear. Okay, I got nothing holding me back. In my subconscious, I'm ready to go. And that means, like, all right, that does not mean showing up hungover from the night before.
No.
That does not mean showing up with 30 minutes of sleep because of whatever was going on at home. That doesn't mean showing up without your tools.
It doesn't mean showing up with a raggedy tools either that haven't been well maintained.
That doesn't mean showing up with uninspected equipment.
Right.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So, if you have, say if you're a crane operator and you have lifting equipment, your equipment needs to be ready to work.
Yes.
Inspected, everything checked off, everything signed off, ready to go. If you're the safety person overseeing a job, your paperwork's up to date, your signatures are up to date, your inspections are up to date, you're ready to go. If you're a job leader, like a crew leader, your equipment inspections are up to date. Your job roster is up to date. Your head count is up to date. If you're the ground man, okay, or the laborer, you're ready to work. You're showing up to the job site ready to go. You're awake, you're alert, you're not hungover from the night before. You're
prepared, you're ready to go to work.
Ready to go. And
you
so when they say
notebook, you have your own tally book, you have your own pens, pencils, whatever the case may come. You show up to the job site ready to go to work. And that doesn't matter if you're going out to the refinery, if you're going offshore, if going to work the rigs, you're going to go build a house. If you're showing up as an engineer or an intern, or you're showing up as somebody that's working for the local newspaper, and you don't have to show up till maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. Or maybe you're a night security guard and you work the graveyard shift. The same principle applies. You show up, you wear clothing that is suitable to the job, clothing that's well maintained, that's put together, it fits properly, to present yourself in the best physical nature that you can. You show up with all your stuff gathered up. If you have your lunch, you have your lunch, you have your supplies, whatever the case may be. You show up ready to do your job, alert, ready to go, and happy to be there. Because you have a job to do, and they are relying on you to be the person to do it. Even if you're the lowest man on the totem pole, you have a vital role to play, and you can be the critical piece if you choose to be. Especially these days, because we've seen the safety, and when you're dealing more in the industrial jobs, in the oil and gas and refineries and these heavier industrial environments, there's been such a positive push in the safety direction that everybody has stop work authority. So it's the culture's changed in a positive manner. That does not give you the license to go out there and say, well, I don't like that person, or I don't like something, I don't understand something, so I'm just going to call the whole job to a halt just so I can get a break. That's not what it's there for. What it is there for, if you see something that you feel is unsafe, you can halt the whole job. And it could very well be the lowest man on the totem pole that's only been on the job site for a couple of weeks, that's a helper, that may see a critical piece that these journeymen or these experienced supervisors missed.
Yeah, it could be a situation that they legitimately didn't account for. So a little tangent to roll off on. One of the big things that gets me, especially with journeymen, all right, journeyman level people, all right, guys that are experienced, is big pet peeve of mine is guys that show up on the job site, especially an industrial project, and they don't have a pen. They don't have a pen, and they don't have a notebook with them. You know.
Yeah, just a
and
basic
I'm like,
tally book.
really, like just a little notepad.
Yeah.
Just a notepad. Even just a notepad in the console of your work truck. It's like, dude, you know, you've been in the industry for 7 or 8 years. You know, you're experienced. If you're a journeyman, you're pretty experienced. You've been in the industry a minimum of 5 years in most cases. In most trades, a journeyman is about a 5-year process. You should at least be able to show up to the job site with a pen and pencil and something to write notes on. Like, how are you supposed to do a job walk and take notes if you don't have a pencil or a pen or a notepad? And those are the little things that people watch for, and they're like, dude, man, how am I gonna trust this guy to lead a job? He don't even have a pen in his pocket, you know?
Well, and I mean, so if you have somebody on the job site like that, it's like, well, what do you want out of your life as well? Because if you're a helper or you're a lower level journeyman, you may only be focusing on 1 or 2 tasks at a time. So you don't have you may not have a whole lot of stuff that you got to take notes on, but are you expecting to be a journeyman all the time? Because when you get to be a supervisor or a construction manager or a project manager or a consultant, you're dealing with an exponentially higher number of things that you got to keep track of. You can't rely on your memory. You can't just rely that, oh, well, I know this, I want to remember. You're going to put yourself in a bind really, really quick. I mean, like for me right now, I'm a projects consultant, okay? I have several different clients, and I got 3 highly active projects right now. And I have to keep individual task lists for each of those projects, plus I keep a log of all the conversations I have on a daily basis, the types of emails get communicated, the meetings that get scheduled, the meetings that happen, verbal conversations, and then also like activity, like things, tasks that actually get done.
Mm-hmm.
So I may have anywhere from 50 to 150 open action items that I'm tracking between these 3 projects at any given point in time. Whether or not it's something that I need to do, or something I'm waiting on somebody else, or something that's even the responsibility of somebody else to complete it, but I want visibility on it, so I want to make sure it doesn't get missed, because it's something that needs to get done. So as you move up in the rankings, the complexity of your job and what you're responsible for increases, and you have to get those habits of making your notes. What do I have to do today? What did I get done today? Oh, hey, I see this. Here's a tag on a cable. Here's an equipment tag on a piece of equipment. Or, hey, this is something that I didn't know about this. I'm just going to make myself a note because it's probably something I need to remember. You're getting in the habit of that as early as possible in your process when you're 18, 19, 20 years old. As a helper, it pays off dividends for you in the future, because then you get to be relied upon as a person. Like, well, if you want to know, you got to talk to Joe Blow over here, because he knows, he keeps track of all that stuff. He can answer your question. And then this goes into, I mean, we're going to get into this later on, but I mean, then you're the invaluable resource.
Yeah.
You're the one person they can't let go, because you have all the answers.
Right. And it's a lot easier to build those habits one at a time.
Absolutely.
Which is why we harp on young people so much, and when I say young people, I mean new people. Because you could be new to the industry. It could be a 19-year-old, it could be a 40-year-old. If some guy wants to change his, if anybody wants to change their career path and enter the industry, you can do that whatever time you want to do. But what we harp on is when you get into the industry, and it's like, dude, do the little things right. Because we can't trust you to do the big things right if you can't do the little things right.
That's true. That's true.
So do the little things right. Carry a dang pen in your pocket. Carry a notepad in your pocket. Because I know I can't trust myself to remember something. I got to write it down in a note. So I know I can't trust you probably to remember it 2 days from now or 3 days from now. So write it down in a note, and save it. And I hate to be in a morning meeting, like in a job site meeting or a safety meeting, and you ask somebody to sign off on something, and I don't have a pen. And it's like, well, okay.
So you're a grown man.
Do you have any tools? Like, did you bring any tools with you? Like, you didn't even have, you couldn't even bring a pen. Could you bring some tools? What does your toolbox look like now? And now the questions start. Now I'm starting to question, like, well, man, is this guy ready? Is he prepared? Does he know what he's doing? Heck, he couldn't bring a pen. What does his crew truck look like? What does his toolbox look like?
Right.
If he's missing the most basic thing he could, and I mean, we're harping on the pen, but it's like, dude, it's a big deal. It's like, if it's like somebody showing up to work in an industrial environment with no steel-toed boots. It's like, dude, you got to show up to the job site with steel-toed boots. So it's like, that's just an example. It's a dumb example of like showing up completely not ready to go. And
it does matter.
So it really does matter. And people wonder, well, how come I haven't risen up through the ranks, or how come I can't, get the next job up or get the next level up? It's like, well, maybe it's because you can't be trusted. You can't even show up to the job site with a pen and a pair of steel-toed boots. How much we're gonna trust you to do the next job, the next most important job, above what you're doing right now? And so, I think the message we're trying to get across to people is, especially young people in the industry, is like, have some accountability.
Yes, take responsibility.
Take some responsibility. Have some accountability. Learn the job. Learn the responsibilities. Learn the expectations. Go and be above and beyond every day in having what you need. to do the job, and being ready to do the job when you show up. Be rested when you come to work. Um, Nutrition, like, be eating right, be drinking right, so right now it's June 23rd, and in the middle of Southeast Texas summer, Beaumont heat, Texas heat, humidity. It's been raining all week already. Okay, it's Tuesday evening. It's been raining all week, so it's humid as hell outside. And if you go out on a job site and do anything outside right now, like, it's hot.
Yeah, even if you go outside hot. To mow your own lawn.
It's hot. Yeah. It's humid. It's a mess. You have to prepare your body for that work environment.
That's exactly right.
You got to prepare. You got to prepare everything for what's going on. If you were to go up north somewhere in the middle of winter, obviously you'd have to prepare in a completely different way, for that environment. And that's what we're talking about, is like, figure out what your environment is. We see guys all the time show up to work, and they've been, drinking a 6-pack of beer the night before, and they've been eating pizza the night before, and they think they're going to show up the next morning on the job site ready to work, and they wonder why they can't handle the heat, why they can't handle the humidity. It's like, well, you're not prepared for the work environment, bro. You've been drinking too much, you've been eating too much, you're unfit. You're not. That's what we mean when we say fit to work. Show up hydrated, show up eating right, show up with your body conditioned, ready to take the environment that you have to work in. For Southeast Texas, that's a high heat, high humidity environment. There's other environments out there that are, incredibly cold, or whatever. They don't have the humidity, or they don't have the heat, whatever. But you have to adapt. If you're going to be a professional, you have to figure out what that environment's going to be when you get there. The environment offshore can be different. If you're 100 miles offshore, it can be different than what it is on the beach, so to speak, okay, on the coastline. So you have to evaluate that and prepare for that. If you're showing up on the job site as a helper, obviously you have a completely different list of expectations than the foreman, or the superintendent, or the project manager, or the construction manager. But you have to learn and know what the expectations are for your job, and follow them, and then go above and beyond them.
Yes.
And so and professionalism comes all the way down to to how you present yourself. And everybody thinks, well, it doesn't matter how I look. It's construction. It's like, well, we're judging you for everything. Like, we're judging you off of how you talk. We're judging you off of how you dress. We're judging you off of the tools you present yourself with, the truck you present yourself with, the equipment.
Which doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be the fanciest. You don't have to be wearing the fanciest boots. You don't have to be wearing the fanciest pants. You don't have to be driving the fanciest truck. But you should have equipment and supplies and clothing, and everything should be suitable for the job, clean and well maintained, and ready to perform at its optimum level.
So one thing that gets me, chaps my ass, man, is crew trucks, dirty crew trucks. Kills me. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a single cab, half-ton pickup, or if it's a four-door F450 crew truck, dually. Doesn't matter. When guys who are put in charge of a work truck, and it's not maintained and it's not cleaned regularly, it's not washed outside, the windows aren't kept clean, the bed, the back of the truck is in disarray and full of trash and stuff. Dude, that just bottom line, man, it just chaps my ass. I'm like, dude, you don't got respect for nothing. You can't even keep your truck clean. Like, you drive this thing. This is a piece of equipment that you're in every day, and you can't even keep up with this. You know what I mean? Like, how are you treating the rest of my equipment?
Right.
You know, how are you treating everything else that I've trusted you with? You can't even treat this nice. How are you gonna treat everything else? And people go, well, it's not my truck. And it's like, yeah, but you're assigned to that truck.
You're responsible.
You're responsible for that
You're
truck.
responsible for that truck.
Keep up with it.
You know, I had a conversation with one of my project managers earlier today. We were talking about we're working with a contractor that has a scope of work to do, and there were some questions from another. So we're doing two different feed studies. We got a feed study going on for the platform, and we got a feed study going on for a brand new drilling rig. So these are both brand new assets. And this is the feed study. It's just the beginning of trying to make sure we got all the ducks in a row to get the investment money lined up from the investors so that they can move forward with detailed engineering and construction and stuff. It's a long process. We're at the beginning stages. You have the platform guys over here on one side, and on the other side you have the drilling guys. And you have these two contractors that are each doing their specific roles. Okay, so the platform guys have asked questions directed to the rig guys. And it has gone a little ways, and these questions haven't been answered. So we're kind of standing there in the middle, and we're trying to help interface between the two. And the guy, I was talking to one of the project managers, he's like, we really need to put a little heat on these guys. And I said, we're trying to, we're ramping it up. See if we can't get some answers out of them before we have this meeting that comes up on Thursday morning. He's like, all right. He's like, we're really not responsible. I said, but we are. You know, we're not like directly responsible. Like, we're not supposed to be the ones actually coming up with the answers. But in the eyes of our client, we are supposed to be providing a service which is helping solve these problems and help keep everybody on track and keep the contractor on the drilling rig side, keep them lined out to what their tasks are, and keep these things from backing up. So yes, we are responsible. We have to take ownership of it. We have to take responsibility for it. Now, I need the contractor to do their job, but I want to take responsibility of making sure all the questions are on their list and stoking that fire, and if there's any questions they have, making sure they get the answers and helping push things along as much as possible. So how are you taking ownership? You know, got to take ownership from the very beginning. And you know, back in the day when you and me and a couple of guys, you know, we were good friends with, all worked together. We were working down Sabine Pass. We would meet together at the house at a certain time every morning. We would ride and take turns driving to get down to the job site. We'd make sure that we were there 15, 20 minutes early. We would work our entire day long. And then we'd make sure that everything was closed out and everybody was happy, and then we'd wrap up and leave. And we had work clothes that were suitable for the job site. We made sure that we had all our tools and our equipment. And we got complimented from the guys that we worked with and worked for that, you know, we actually, some of the guys that we worked with actually thought we had a lot more experience than we actually did because of the way we presented ourselves on the job site.
Well, it kind of goes back to that fake it till you make it, or if you can't dazzle them with brilliance,
baffle them with bullshit.
Dazzle them with bullshit.
But you got to try. You know,
we showed up. We weren't trying to be facetious or anything, but I mean, no, we did. You know, and the funny thing about that scenario that you described is that we thought that was just the standard.
Hey, you're paying me to be here. Here.
We showed up, you know, and for everybody out there as listening in, like we're talking about, we showed up in you know, long sleeve button down work shirts, you know, tradesman type shirts.
FR shirts.
FR shirts, but tradesman style shirts, tradesman style trousers. You know, we showed up in clean hard hats, ready to work, and the reaction that we got was that we looked very professional. This was in an environment where, say we were helpers, and we were showing up as helpers, showing up in tradesman shirts, tradesman trousers, and other helpers were showing up in, say, worn out blue jeans and t-shirts.
Yeah, ratty t-shirts.
So, guess who looked more professional, right? The guy in the tradesman shirt, the long sleeve button down, work shirt, uniform shirt, or the guy in a t-shirt, in a worn out t-shirt. Guess who looks more professional, right? Like, obviously. And then, what most people won't grasp until they do it themselves is it makes you feel so much better about yourself when you dress the part.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And this is something that I've gotten into more in the professional environment of, like, say, being a project manager, and I'm used to showing up on a job site with a work shirt, and work pants, and well, now on the project management side, the professional side is a little bit different. Sometimes sometimes you gotta show up in Nomex and go to the plant. Sometimes you gotta show up in a work shirt and go to the job site. And sometimes you gotta show up to the office, in a button-down dress shirt, and a pair of khakis to look the part. And it's amazing. It's amazing how much how you change your image has in affecting how you present yourself, non-verbally, how you present yourself, your whole presence changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what people don't understand is, like, dude, start dressing like a professional, start acting like a professional, and it's going to change how you do your job. You're going to be more professional because you look more professional, you feel more professional. Everybody else reacts to you as a professional because of how you look to them. And they're people will buck that a little bit. They'll say, oh, well, it's not all about looks. And it's like, actually, there's a huge part of it that is about looks. Get over it, figure it out, learn it, accept it, move on with it. That's the way the world works.
Right.
First impressions are everything. The way people look at you determines how they deal with you. Okay, shut up and accept it, learn it, and go on.
And yeah, I mean, it's not like somebody's sitting there saying, well, if this son of a gun doesn't have a tradesman shirt on, well, he's useless and he has no future with this company. It's not that. It's people are seeing things and interpreting things subconsciously all the time. So when you walk up, people are, even if they're not doing it consciously, but these things, they're making judgments and they're seeing things. And you also got to take it from the perspective of practicality, because when we worked the rigs, all right, we got started down there working the rigs in Sabine. Those work shirts, if I remember correctly, so we were getting Bulwark style, Bulwark brand FR shirts. We were getting them from Monroe Safety Apparel, and we were getting them with the company logo on one side and our name on the other side, and the little patches.
And we were paying for them ourselves.
We were paying for them ourselves. The company wasn't paying for it, and we were spending. I want to say we were spending anywhere from $75 to $85, $90 a shirt. Does that sound about right?
Sounds like it sounds like it's probably about right.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
we were spending at least $65, $70 a shirt for sure.
So this was not cheap, and we weren't making. I mean, we were making $12 an hour at the time.
I think as a helper back then, I was probably making something like $14 an hour.
Yeah, so we weren't making a whole lot of money, but we were. But and we even had guys on the job site saying, "Hey, man, I really like that shirt, man." And you're like, "So, how much? Where'd you get it from?" "Oh, we got it from over here." "Well, how much did it cost you?" "Well, this is how much it cost me." Holy crap, that's way too much for a shirt. It's like, well, you may think it's too much for a shirt, but you also got to take it from a practicality perspective. Not only do you look better, you look more suitable for the role that you're playing. You're dressing higher than your station is, you know, because you want to move up. You don't always want to be a helper. You want to be a journeyman, you know, so you got to act like a journeyman, present yourself as a journeyman, be ready to move up to be a journeyman. When you're a journeyman, you want to be a foreman. When you're a foreman, you want to be a supervisor. You know, you gotta dress for the part of where you're going. You got to conduct yourself suitable to where you're going. But also, it was purely from the perspective of cost analysis. We were actually, at the end of the day, spending less money overall than anybody else was. Now, our cost was more upfront cost, but our shirts lasted 10 times longer than anybody else.
We were buying quality.
That's right.
So we were paying up front for the quality, but it goes back to kind of like recap and draw that all back in. It was, you know, you're dress for the job you want to have, not the job you have. And dress for the job you're preparing for, not the job you're working.
And conduct yourself as well.
And conduct yourself accordingly. And it's all baby steps. I mean, it's not like you're gonna show up on the job site as a helper in a 3-piece suit because you think you're gonna go to be a project manager or be a company owner or something like that. It's like you gotta walk the process. But you know, if you're a grunt helper, laborer, you know, dress professionally, and then people are going to take you professionally. They're going to treat you professionally. You're going to learn. You're going to grow. You're going to progress. And the next step, you're going to be a journeyman. And then if you'll dress accordingly, present yourself accordingly, act accordingly, then you're going to grow. You're going to learn. People are going to help you. People are going to trust you. People are going to assume that you know what you're doing, and they're going to give you opportunities, and you're gonna progress into a foreman position or into a leadership position, or eventually you're gonna go into a management position, and on and on and on. And a lot of those things, a lot of it comes down. So for instance, a lot of it comes down to say exposure in meetings, in construction meetings, and you know, on the project side, you know, you can look at somebody in from the field, like say maybe a superintendent or a foreman, and you might be getting ready for a kickoff meeting on a project, and you're like, man, I really need to take a guy from the field to make sure we're not overlooking anything. Well, guess who you're gonna pull out of the field? You know, the guy who looks like a bum, or the guy who looks like he's a professional in the environment that he's working in. You're gonna pull the professional, and you're going to take him with you to the meeting, and he's going to get more exposure when he goes to that meeting, you know, and that's why that's what we're kind of talking about, is like, hey, look, you know, the project manager is going to have to take the superintendent with him to a meeting, to a job site meeting. He's going to take the guy who looks professional. He's going to promote the guy who looks professional so he can take that guy with him. He's not going to take the bum with him. You know, he's going to take the guy who looks like he knows what he's talking about. So people are like, well, I don't have to dress the part. It's like, yeah, you kind of do. You do. And then the project managers, you know, it's like, hey, man, you're a project manager, you're a project engineer, or you're a team lead. Dress the part, dude. Well, Don't show up like a college kid that just got out of the dorm room. Like, show up ready to, like, professionally ready to go.
And this is just, I mean, this all ties in together. Not to go off, not to get us off on a different tangent, but I mean, you got one shot at this life. So you're not here. You shouldn't be here just to, well, I'm here. I'm just gonna soak up as much oxygen as I can. You're here. You have a golden opportunity to be the best that you can be and be a positive impact to your environment. That's from a general philosophical and life perspective. That's the same thing we're talking about in the job environment. You show up on the job environment, you have an obligation to be the best employee that you can be.
Right now.
Right now. To do the best you can. Don't break your back unnecessarily, put yourself in danger. Don't grab a hold of a 100-pound sack of concrete and say, well, I got to be the best I can be. I got to do this. So don't put yourself. Be reasonable about this, but be a really good employee. Do a good job for the people that you work for, and try to be a positive member of the team and conduct yourself as you're happy to be there, you're happy to contribute, you appreciate the opportunity, and you want to learn and excel and move up the ranks. Because hopefully you're somebody that's getting inspired by this and doesn't want to just show up for a paycheck, but wants to show up and say, I may be a helper today, but in a year from now, I'm going to be working on being a journeyman. And it ain't going to be too much longer after that, and they're going to have me as the foreman. I may be the youngest foreman that this company has ever trusted to be a foreman, but I'm going to be the best foreman that they've ever had. And then I'm going to be the best superintendent they've ever had.
Yeah.
And just ride on up the line. Just ride on up the line.
Yeah, I remember working a job and the foreman on the job wasn't stepping up, and so I was having to step up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing all the morning paperwork. I was getting the permitting. I was processing all the startup for the shift every morning. And the project manager pulled me aside at like midway through, and he said, he's like, look, he said, I know you're doing what's not your job. He said, I know that, I see that, and he said, just hold on, just stick with it. He said, we're gonna reward you for that. He said, I see what's going on, I see what you're doing, I see what the foreman's not doing, and I see what you're stepping up and doing that's outside of your work scope. And he said, and I appreciate it, and you're gonna be rewarded for that. And that's just something like, something to kind of like stoke the fire for. I mean, I was young. I was like 21 when during that particular scenario, and was totally unqualified to be a foreman. I mean, I wasn't the foreman. I wasn't qualified to be the foreman. I didn't want to be the foreman, but it's just an example of how there was a void. I stepped up and filled the void as best I could, and got really good recognition for it, because somebody else wasn't doing their job, and I was doing whatever I could to fill the void, because we were kind of being left hanging there at the moment, and it was like somebody had to step up and do something, and so I stepped up and did the paperwork, and from there you get some recognition, you build some confidence, people take a little bit of trust. They give you a little bit of trust, give you a little bit of faith. They let you grow a little bit, and then that's how you build a career. You build it in baby steps. And for the young people out there, it's like they think, oh, well, I'm going to graduate college. I'm going to graduate with a 4-year degree, and all I've been doing for 4 years is just shoot the shit at college, and I'm gonna step into a projects role, and everybody's gonna do what I say. And it's like, oh, that's not how it works. Or some guy thinks, oh, I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna go into the trades, and I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna do the program, I'm gonna become a journeyman, and the next thing I know, I'm gonna be running a job, running a crew as a journeyman. And it's like, no, that's not how it works, bro. Like, it's baby steps. It's like one day you're washing the truck for the journeyman, and the next day you're helping the journeyman fill out the paperwork for the safety meeting, and the next day you're helping him fill out the paperwork for the equipment inspection. You're helping him fill out paperwork for the start of work process first thing in the morning, or you're voicing an opinion in the middle of a safety meeting, and that's what people don't understand about things like safety meetings. It's like safety meetings are really good opportunities for people to find leadership, because they, when we hold these from a management standpoint, from a project standpoint, we hold these safety meetings, and we kind of watch people in the safety meetings, see, okay, who's paying attention, and who actually brings new information to the table, who actually critiques what we're doing, helps us grow as a company, helps us grow as a crew, helps this project become more profitable and safer. And those are the people that we start watching and say, well, man, that guy, he had a really good point about safety. Maybe we can elaborate on that. Maybe we can talk to him more about this and elaborate on what he was talking about, and find a new way to do this process a little bit faster and a little bit safer. And so it's all the little things building up. It's like I said, going back up a little bit. It's like, one day you're washing the truck for the crew leader, and the next day, you're the crew leader. And it's baby steps. It's one day you're checking in early, and the next day you're checking in early, and somebody says, hey, you know what? Crew leader didn't show up. We need somebody to fill out this paperwork. You're here, you're early. Can you fill this paperwork out while you're waiting on the shift to start? Now you're filling out paperwork for the job. The next thing you know, you're leading a safety meeting. The next thing you know, somebody's trusting you with a task. The next thing you know, you got 3 or 4 guys working under you, and you're accomplishing a project, and it just builds and builds and builds. But it's like, you got to be humble enough to take every little step as it comes along the way,
Yeah, and realize that there's a lot of things that's going to contribute very greatly to your knowledge base. So like you were saying, the safety meetings, there's a couple other important points to be made, because once you have some experience as a foreman or a supervisor, you're sitting there as a foreman or a supervisor, either leading the safety meeting or watching the safety meeting unfold, and you're looking around at the other members of the crew, and people don't realize sometimes that if you're sitting there daydreaming, they can see that. If we're sitting there as a supervisor, and you're sitting there and you're pretending to pay attention to the safety meeting, and you're actually daydreaming and thinking about, you want to put a new lift on your truck, or I want to get the new four-wheeler, or where am I going to take my girlfriend out to dinner tonight, or how am I going to pay my bills, and my wife's pregnant. If you're thinking about other things and not paying attention to the safety meeting, we see that. As supervisors, as lead men, we see that. We can tell who's paying attention, who's not. We can tell who's trying to give honest feedback. We can tell who's engaged with the process. So you might as well be engaged.
Yeah.
You might as well just say, look, I'm here to work. Obviously, I have these other stressors in my life, or I have these other things I want to get done. That's fine. Think about those things on your break. When you're calling your girlfriend to check in, when you're calling your wife to check in, when you're checking on your kids, when you're calling to say, what's the price on this part for my truck or my four-wheeler. Do that during your break time and your lunchtime. When you're there on the job site, when you're participating in the safety meeting and stuff, stay engaged with the process, so you're actually putting yourself in the best scenario possible, and that you're putting yourself in the proper mindset to be safe, so that you can go home to your wife or your girlfriend or your truck or whatever the case may be. And if you have the opportunity to fill out paperwork, as somebody that's a lower person on the totem pole, you should jump on that opportunity to fill out JSAs and safety paperwork and stuff, so you learn things that you don't know. And if you're a supervisor or you're a foreman, you should jump on the opportunity to mentor the helpers and make sure they're filling the paperwork out properly. Not just saying, okay, well, I'm a journeyman now, so I don't fill out the JSA. I make my helper fill out the JSA. No, that's not the correct mentality. You say, I am the journeyman. I will make sure that my JSA is filled out correctly. But I am going to coach my helper because he needs to learn this lesson. He needs this experience. But I'm the journeyman. I know so much more than he does. So I'm going to coach him through this process because I need him to learn this. I need him to learn it well. I need him to do it correctly. So everybody has the responsibility doesn't stop. The responsibility doesn't stop as you move up the chain. And even if you're working in an office environment, okay, maybe you're not filling out JSAs, but maybe you're having daily meetings, or maybe you're having project meetings. You know, you're the new man, you're the intern, you're the low man on the totem pole, you're the new engineer, whatever. Volunteer to be the one taking the minutes of the meeting or the meeting notes.
Or setting the agenda up or whatever. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to like, you know, it's like no job is too small, no job is too big. So, you know, humble yourself down a little bit. Nothing is too small that you can't do it for someone. Whether it's taking minutes of the meeting, you know, writing the JSA, signing the safety documentation, filling out the permit. You know, maybe it's a task that you think is meant for a lower level workman or a lower level work person, but it's like, look, the bottom line end of the day, it's like no job is too small. Do the job. If nobody else is there to do it, you go do it, no matter how small it is. And no job is too big. If you're in the middle of a situation presents itself, and you're like, man, that's a big task, and well, it's like step up and do the work. You know, like if you're just a helper, and you're like, well, you know, I'm not really tuned into. I don't write permits every day. I don't sign permits every day. It's like, well, you know, if you have the opportunity, step up and sign the permit. Step up and evaluate the permit with, you know, whoever's writing it, and go ahead and accept it. Step up to the safety permit, the safety paperwork, and analyze it, assess it, you know, get it signed off, you know, sign off on it. You know, take some responsibility, and
don't be self-conscious about thinking that you have to do it perfectly. I mean, if you're a new helper and you've only been on the job for 6 weeks, nobody expects you to fill anything out or do anything perfectly. They just expect you to give it an honest, good effort.
Try.
And if you
just
get stuck, say,
ask for help.
I'm stuck. I don't understand. I need some help. I don't understand the step. What do I add in this field of the paperwork? What does this mean?
Yeah. So don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to step up. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, you're gonna have to ask
Absolutely.
for help. You know, I mean, if you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, chances are there's gonna be something you're really not gonna know how to do. So you're going to have to be able to ask for help. You're going to have to be able to reach out to someone to get it done correctly. You know, it kind of all falls back on, you know, as we started out talking about just professionalism. It's just show up on the job site ready to go. Show up on the job site, you're ready to work. And that's both physically, that's mentally. Show up with the right equipment. Show up with the right tools. For those of anybody out there who's like, well, I don't know what tools I'm supposed to have. Well, most companies have a tool list, a bare minimum tool list of like, look, hey dude, you're coming to work with us. This is at a bare minimum for the position that you're hired to be. This is the minimum required tool list that you should have when you show up to the job site. So look at that tool list and you know, like, that's the bare minimum. That's what I have to have. Show up with the right tools. Show up with the right work uniform. Show up ready to do the work. Show up ready to go, ready to learn, ready to and that is ready to progress. Show up ready to learn, which means it doesn't matter if you're 18 or you're 81. You know, you show up every day ready to learn something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and if you're starting out, say you're in your first week as an electrical helper, working at one of the refineries. Okay, you may only have a couple of different screwdrivers of different sizes.
You might have 5 tools that you're supposed to have.
That'd be fine. It's your first week.
But you better have those 5 tools.
But you better have those 5 tools, and then 6 months from now, and a year from now, you would expect that your tools have grown in quantity, in quality, and in suitability to your job based on where y'all are working, in the environment that you're working in. Obviously, guys that are working on the drilling rigs are going to have a different set of tools in certain circumstances than guys working in the refineries in certain situations versus the guys that are working on the house down the street or maybe even the apartment complex. They may all be electricians, but they're going to have different pieces of equipment and different tools depending upon their little piece of puzzle. But you're going to grow with the job, improve yourself with the job, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, keep moving forward. That's one of the big things, especially for. This will be kind of preaching to the choir for a lot of people, but for the younger people, it goes. When we say 90% of success is showing up, what we mean is showing up ready to do something, showing up ready for success. So when people say, "Oh man, 90% of success is just showing up," yeah, but showing up means showing up on time. Showing up means ready to work, having the equipment to work, having the knowledge, being able to ask the right questions, being able to say the right things, looking professional, acting professional. Like those are all the things. Like you can't just show up and success is magically gonna come to you just because you showed up on time for 5 years straight. No, you gotta show up and actually do some work while you're there. You gotta show up with the tools. You gotta show up with the attitude. You gotta show up with the personality. You gotta show up with the material. You gotta show up with the knowledge. That's what we're talking about. Show up is like all of that. And some people think, well man, I showed up. I showed up, nothing happened. I was like that. I was like, well man, I showed up. I was on time. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't speak up for yourself. You didn't take charge in this project. You didn't sell this job. Like blah blah blah. Like a million different things. It's like it's not just showing up and clocking in. Showing up. That when we say show up, we don't mean just show up and clock in don't just sign in on the morning sign-in sheet. Do the job. Be ready for the job. Be professional. Be on time. Be correct. Take correction when you're not correct. That's
Absolutely.
professionalism. Be
Absolutely.
be professional. And apparently we got to spell it out for these damn kids, man. Like seriously, these 18-year-olds and these 20-year-olds, these 30-year-olds, okay, some of the 40-year-olds. Apparently we got to spell it out for them. But it's like when we say show up, we mean show up on time. Okay, we mean show up early. Okay, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late.
Right. Right.
Show up. When we show up looking professional, it's like, dude, tuck your shirt in, man. Have your uniform looking like you. Don't look like you just got out of the laundry room. Like have your clothes clean. Have your shirt tucked in. Have your boots cleaned up. Be ready to work.
Right.
Don't. And
a lot of this too is like be reasonable.
Yeah.
Because like, say your work clothes. Like, you don't want everything all crumpled up. It looks like it had been rolled up in a ball for 3 weeks, thrown in the corner of your room. You picked it up, shook it out, and put it on. Like, if you're taking your work clothes, work shirts, tradesman shirts, even some of the nicer shirts, if you take them out of the dryer and hang them up,
Just hang them up. You don't have to iron
You
them.
don't have to iron.
Just hang them up.
We're not
Just don't
saying
look
that
like
your
a.
jeans
Just
have
don't
gotta
look like
be
a.
completely
pig.
creased, or your shirt has to be completely ironed and pressed and starched. Just take it out, hang it up.
Just
You
don't
know?
look like a bum.
Yes, exactly.
You know, that's all it is. Just
Some
don't
reasonableness.
look like a bum. You know, and you know, when you're at work, do some work.
Yes.
You know, everybody's like, "Oh, well, I showed up for 5 years straight." It's like, yeah, but you didn't do any. Like, show up when you're at work. You know, like try to do some work. Try to do a little bit of work every once in a while. You know,
Yeah.
like maybe you'll be successful if you try to do a little bit of work while you're at work. Maybe you'll be successful.
Well, here's the crazy thing too. So, you know, like if you go to work, like especially when we were working the rigs back in Sabine, and you don't hear us talk a lot about the Sabine Pass because me and Steven used to work down there together back in the day when we were really getting our start on the rigs. But you can make a 12-hour day go by really quick, even if you're just banding cable up in the cable trays by just working.
Yeah.
Just put your mind to say, okay,
Oh, yeah.
I want to take this section, and I want to see if I can get this section done today. And you know what? That 12-hour day, that pass is just as good. I mean, you'd be banding cable, you can make that day go by a whole lot quicker, and you're going to get paid the same as if you're stringing up lights or doing something more glorious. But you can make that day pass.
That's like, I mean, I was working at, I don't remember where I was at, but there was like some cleanup work to do, you know? And I,
8,500,
oh yeah, maybe you know, maybe that was on that deep water rig that we were working on, and there wasn't anything else to do, so we ended up mopping floors.
Yeah, that's
and I
exactly
remember,
where it was.
and somebody said something, and they were like, "Well, I'm not paid to mop floors," and I said, "They pay me the same." I was like, "I don't know about you." I was like, "But bro, they don't pay me any less, you know? Like they pay me the same, whether I'm mopping floors or I'm climbing a derrick. They pay me the same." I was like, "You know what? Mopping floors is a hell of a lot easier than climbing a derrick, so I don't mind." And you know, it kind of goes down to be humble and just do the job, just do the work, whatever. And you know, one thing that's always stuck with me is that when I was probably about 12 years old, I was sitting at the dinner table with our grandmother, okay, Nana.
Yeah.
And our cousin was going through an apprenticeship program, and she made the comment. She said, "Look," she said, "he's in this apprenticeship program," and she said, "Every time, if he doesn't have something to do, he finds something to do. If he has nothing at all to do, he'll pick up a broom and he'll sweep the floor. You know, as long as he's busy, as he's always busy, he's always doing something." And she said that's what's contributing to his success. And she told me this when I was like 12 years old. She said, you know, as long as you find something to do, then you're always going to have success. She said, don't ever sit down on a job. She said, always find something to do. And you know, on that side, that was on our nana on our mom's side of the family, and everybody on our mom's side of the family were all tradesmen. And so, you know, everybody was very used to that work environment, and that stuck with me. And every time I would be on a job, you know, maybe we were supposed to be quote unquote doing electrical work, or you know, doing structural work, or maybe we were supposed to be, you know, doing fiber optics or something, you know, something glorious, you know, something fun, something interesting. And it was, even if there was nothing to do, even if our job scope was something like fiber optics, if we had nothing to do, man, it was like, dude, just pick up a broom and sweep up the work area, or pick up a mop and mop the work area, you know, clean some windows or something. Just whatever you need to do to find something to do to make the day, do that. And the management on your project will pick up on that.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and you know, we were and a lot of times the general consensus is like, well, man, I'm an electrician, I'm not paid to sweep floors, or I'm a bricklayer, I'm not paid to mop up, you know, or I'm a project manager, I'm not paid, they don't pay me to wipe down windows. And it's like, you know, yeah, but they pay you to work, okay, they pay you to work, and you know, if you're there for an 8 hour day, they pay you to work for 8 hours. And if you don't have electrical work to do, then pick up a broom and sweep something, you know. And if you don't have, you know, if you don't have brick work to do, well, you know, pick up a mop and mop something down, you know. Or if you don't have, if you got a break in what you're doing on the project management side, it's like, well, maybe go outside and help the guys clean up the work site, or you know, wipe some windows down or something, you know, or go help the apprentice, you know, explain something to the apprentice or something. You know, it's like you're paid to work. You're paid for production. And that's kind of what people lose sight of sometimes. Is like you're paid to produce. You're not paid just to sit there. You're not paid just to look pretty, cuz look, it's construction. Most of us don't look all that pretty. You're paid to produce. So if you're not producing, all right, you're cutting somebody short somewhere down the food chain.
And you need to take responsibility. You need to take responsibility for your area. I mean, we just had dinner the other night, and we were talking about old man Carl Lee. You know, Carl,
Cleanest guy.
The SCR room was his baby.
Cleanest guy I've ever seen on a job site.
I mean, it didn't matter whether he was having to sweep the floors.
Perfectly clean work site.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, when you went into the SCR room, it didn't matter if he was having to sweep the floor to keep it clean, or if you went into his SCR room,
his work area, if you went
into
his work area,
and you made a mess, and you didn't clean up your mess, he was 4 foot up your ass.
He was on you.
That's right, because he was taking responsibility. That was his area he was managing. And a good OIM, a good plant manager, a good office manager, a good president of a company takes ownership of their entire environment. You know, it doesn't matter. You see some trash sitting there on the street, you pick up that trash.
Yeah, take ownership of your work area. Take ownership of your workspace. Well, how much longer can we beat this horse?
Oh man, we beat it longer, but how much we got into this? We've probably been going for an hour.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, so
it's been a minute. So maybe you know, maybe we can tell everybody once again to just be professional. You know, figure out your job, figure out your task, and accomplish it in a productive manner. You know,
be an asset to your company.
Be an asset. That's it. That's really what it comes down to. You know, that's exactly what it comes down to. It's just be responsible, be honest, take responsibility for your actions, take responsibility for your work environment, and for yourself. Take responsibility for yourself, and just show up. But when we show up, what we're really saying is like, show up and do all these. You know, show up on time. Be ready to work. Be professional.
Be your best self.
Bring
your best
be
self.
Your better self.
Yeah.
Because every day you should be getting better and better and better. And that's what really, hell, that's what all this is about, is, you know, us hashing out how we can be better.
That's true.
And, you know, holding ourselves accountable to how we can be better.
Absolutely.
And that's really what we're saying, everybody, is just to get better, be better, try more, try to rise up. One step at a time above where you're at, and just keep rolling forward.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Keep rolling forward. So, June.
Joe, man. Another one down.
Another one down. Professionalism. Hope some young kids listen to this. I know they need it. I know they need it. I'm not going to say they probably need it. I've dealt with them. I know they need it. So y'all listen, you kids. You 40-year-old kids. Y'all tune in. Y'all get it down. Golden Triangle Signal. Out.